and yourselves, because I've been talking already.
Yeah,
Sure. So we're from Estonia. One of our teammates is from Lithuania, and we're growing tea in Georgia. So we started like 5 years ago already, something like that. So we're rehabilitating abandoned tea plantations in Georgia, which had been abandoned for the last 30 years. And now we have got our plantations more or less on, although they're still growing and developing, but I think we're already in a point where the plantations are in a good shape and we are able to produce quite good tea already.
You know what? I've not tasted your tea. I think this is kind of, I need to get myself some samples and actually taste them. I'm quite intrigued. So how many people are involved in Renegade? I always see pictures of lots of people together, which is really lovely. I love following you on Instagram. But how many people are involved as the founders?
Well, founders, we actually have 7.
Wow.
Nowadays, 5 of us are actively involved in the production and running the company. But if we include also our Georgian team, then in summer it's basically around 70 people when we are harvesting.
Right.
So,
that's the peak, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, in the winter it's we just do some field works and then there are the founders who share the marketing and the running the business and development part. So in the winter it's I don't know, 20 maybe together with some accounting people and stuff like that. But yeah.
That's awesome. So that's like jobs or partial employment, full-time employment for 70 people at certain times of year. That's really amazing. Really amazing. And how far is where you are right now from the the farm and the operations? Is it like, do you have to go there and actually sleep there, or is it like a short trip? How far is Estonia to where you're growing in Georgia?
During the season we live there, so it's also one of the families from our team lives there all year around. So they're dealing with the winter works. The rest of the team, we are doing the shipping from Estonia, so we're here. But we gather in Georgia from April, more or less. So we are there for 6 months.
Yeah, more or less. We are there half a year in Georgia and half a year in Estonia. But the distance is actually quite big. From here to our plantation, it's some 3,500 kilometers, something like that. So.
Oh my God.
It's although like which probably also like was the reason why you wanted to talk with us regarding what is happening today in Ukraine, because we were all part of Soviet Union some 30 years ago. So then it was all like one country, including Georgia and then Estonia. But nowadays and in COVID times, it's actually quite a journey to get there. So that's also the reason why in the winter we are traveling less, because during the first years we were traveling basically every month back and forth. But now it's a little bit more challenging. So we are trying to minimize the travel actually. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think like everyone, but if the distance is this far, I mean, I think that is, hopefully that's by flight. Or are you?
Yeah. Well, we have done
it with the car as well.
One summer we went there with a car and then back in the autumn. Well, which was kind of fun because actually, we took it like a week, 1 week trip. So some stops and then it was quite interesting. But it's not possible regularly.
No, and I mean the advantage is that you can take, I guess, when you're already driving, you can take some tea back and forth. But it's really interesting to hear this story about how it came, and I want to go much deeper into that, and maybe we'll do that some other time, how it came about and what your backgrounds are in tea from before. So, but I think maybe well, it's up to you if you want to share a little bit more about that. It's always, for tea people, it's always very interesting to hear the backstory, how people, came with their passion to tea and start something new. But I think the main thing today was we wanted to talk about what's going on and hear from you. So maybe just shortly, for those who don't know us, Tea Rebellion, we started about 4 years ago in Canada and have launched a UK operation as well. And the idea is to connect tea farmers with tea drinkers in a more direct way by showing where the farms are, where the teas are coming from, and everything that we produce. And we work with 6 tea farms right now, not yet with Renegade Tea farmers, but maybe at some point in the future. And the idea so that our tea comes from different places around the world, and we are kind of the brand behind that, and we cooperate with these farmers for long term. So that's the background on Tea Rebellion for those who haven't heard that. Should we go into the current situation, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's also, how to say, we thought if to make this live at all or not, because it's like it's a very difficult topic, and we're not sure if we are actually the right people to talk about it. But I think also if it helps for the wider world to understand what's going on, then and then it's important, and then we're kind of felt that it's reasonable also to share our view on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the record, I'm not a journalist, and I might not be asking the right questions either, right? So I'm just obviously like a lot of us thinking about what's going on, watching a lot of news, and concerned and worried, and trying to help if we can. So it's a very kind of from a personal perspective, and that I'm coming here. I have no qualified background at all to talk about this, as it were. But we do all the time, and mostly with people who are not based somewhere close. And so I think it's important to hear how it feels for and what concerns are for people who are closer in the region. So that's kind of the idea here. And what gave rise to the kind of the name Tea, War and Peace is because quite often, have you seen these memes that say make tea, not war? And one tea drinker, I think he's a blogger online, he said he finds it very silly, that comment, because a lot of tea conversations, wars, negotiations always happen with tea in front of him. And in fact, on the news yesterday, Putin was sipping tea with the flight crew. Well, no one was sipping; everyone just had it in front of them. And like it's so present in everyone's lives why these things are happening, and hopefully a lot of people who are concerned are drinking tea to calm them down. So I kind of thought that meme is probably not that appropriate, actually. So why don't you I don't actually know how to start that, but from your maybe we'll start with your operations. Has anything changed in terms of how you're doing what you're doing? I saw you doing something to collect to do a donation. I saw that in your post, which is great. Maybe we'll start there.
Yeah, I think it has kind of halted some of the processes for us, because it just has been a shock. So like we also have not been sure what to share, what to say in a sense, and we felt that this like donation with the help of our customers is like a small part, but basically the only thing we can do, and to also to share like the information and create awareness, because a lot of our customers are also from around the world, and it's hard maybe to understand from further what's really going on. So so we have taken this point that we try to share as much as possible from the operation side, or like we still need to work on the field. It's nature is not gonna stop. So
and it's way too early to really understand what the long-term consequences might be. Like no one knows. It has been just going on for like less than 2 weeks now. So, well, I think at the moment everyone is still in shock and trying to understand what it all means. But from the economical point of view, well, Russia or Ukraine were not our big markets, or in that sense that we didn't have any major partners in those countries. The transport might become more complicated because the shortest we have our like warehouse and then distribution center in Estonia. So the shortest way from Georgia to Estonia was through Russia, and I'm not sure that this route is doable this summer. But again, like what the situation will be, what kind of sanctions on what, I think it's still like developing story.
But I think one thing is that since we share the same past with all the, let's say, former Soviet Union countries, so I think for us and for our workers in Georgia as well, it has been a very scary time in a sense that we all feel it. We kind of it's hard to focus on work at the moment. It's our workers who are in Georgia, they also feel this kind of scare and what the future brings.
Well, they have been like directly experiencing in 2008, because the first kind of like this war took place in Georgia in 2008 when the Russian army was also just 20 kilometers from the capital in Tbilisi at one point. So I think they are even more like looking at it more personally than we here. But I think for what I sense, or I think a lot of people in Western Europe and further away, I think they haven't probably fully understood what is happening in Russia and what where those processes could lead. Because unfortunately, I can say that this what is happening today in Ukraine is not a surprise for me. I actually, in 2014, when they took the Crimea, I actually thought that the next will be Baltics. But well, I think just the Ukraine was so successful with their internal processes and building the country and society that it just led to the current outcome, that it was a higher priority. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not a surprise for me at all. And I don't think that most of people in Western Europe have had the same view or thought that it could happen. Well, it's just from the distance and with all this propaganda that where Russians have been also very successful in the past. Well, it's just doing its job. Luckily, I think at least if there is something positive to take from it, is that those masks are finally fallen, and and I think that in the future, well, it will be much harder to do this propaganda and say that, well, we have no bad intentions and we are just like thinking about peaceful citizens and stuff like that. But well, it's a different story today.
Yeah, I think you're right there in your description that a lot of the Western world probably didn't think this was going to happen like that, or weren't aware that we were this close, and was completely surprised when he invaded, right? So it wasn't something that, despite all the rhetoric, people took 100% seriously. And the veil certainly come off, I think, in terms of there was I think always a certain fraction of society that was trying to have people understand life from Putin's perspective, or life from like how would the whole societal changes look like and be perceived. But that's not a big, I wouldn't say that's a very dominant voice in the conversations over the last 10 years or so. So I think there's possibly a lack of understanding how this came about from a certain view of the world. But that's for the West, right? Not for you, having lived in on the other end, I guess.
I think we have actually discussed it over the few days that it's. I'd say that we kind of know what. Although I'm too young to remember, I was born in free Estonia, but still we kind of know what the system is about and what those messages are really about when they're said and so on. But people who don't have this connection, it is really hard to understand that it's for real, that it's not just some games or like I don't know, power games, but it's real, and now it has happened.
Well, I think also that like we are here, like we are next to the Russian borders, and we were occupied by Russia for half a century. So anyway, we have much more contact also on a daily basis, and seeing what happens inside Russia with all this propaganda in the TV, and how things are shown completely upside down to their people. It's one thing, but I think also what people in most of the world probably didn't realize, and I'm not sure that I fully realized it as well, like at least up to the extent that we are seeing today. But for Putin, or like let's say the Russian leadership at the moment, the person has no meaning, no value. It's just a collateral damage. Doesn't matter how many die, doesn't matter what the sanctions do for their own citizens. It doesn't matter. It's absolutely secondary. And I think in the Western world we are not used to think like that.
No.
We think that people matter. We should save the lives. We should take care of the people's well-being, stuff like that. But for them, nothing matters. And then those sanctions, of course, they cause a lot of pain and they have some long-term impact. But it doesn't change in any way how this process continues.
Right.
Because it's just like those goals or those philosophies they have. Like, well, this is what they are trying to do, and it doesn't matter what the cost. If like it's more like I would say like also the Second World War. Like, well, doesn't matter. Like, million people die, 2 million, how many impoverished? Like, doesn't. It's all secondary. And I think that this is what still, how to say, like even now looking at all what is happening, maybe many people don't understand, and they will expect that, well, it comes to the census, but I think that the only thing that brings this well to the census is if it's just stopped militarily with force against the force. Like, nothing else will work. Well, I hope that I'm mistaken, but
let's hope you're mistaken, because that sounds so grim.
But I unfortunately I think this is what we are going to see over the next weeks and months.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very I think that's really something that people don't. They think that, so your view on that the sanctions is that you're not very hopeful that the sanctions it's in itself will drive change.
Of course they are needed, because in the long run they make the country weaker, and it's also psychologically having an impact, because so far I think they like Putin just thought that they can do whatever they want, and there is nothing happening to them, and obviously it is happening, and then some people are trying to escape Russia now, and then some people are very upset about like those businessmen and etc. Of course, it has an impact, but what my point was is that it does not change the course.
Yeah.
It does not change what is happening over the next weeks or months. It has zero impact on the war in Ukraine. It will roll on.
I guess there's hope here. That the sanctions would drive pressure on Putin, and hence there's going to be actions within Russia to make this very hard. That's the aspiration. That's the hope. You know, I'm not a political observer, and I can't judge that. But that's what people. I think that's the expectation. And yeah.
But I think it's again like I've seen this propaganda on the Russian TV. How it's been is basically more like this fortress kind of approach that like we are actually doing a good thing. We are saving the people in Ukraine from those Nazis, and they have supporters, as we see now, all over the world, and they are trying to punish us for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And
do you, Hannes, I'd be quite interested. So are you getting the Russian news in Estonia, right? And do people, is it formally on TV, or how do you get it?
It was cut off now when the war started, but before that, yes, it was, well, you could easily watch it.
Well, we were working in a company that had some business in Russia, and then we had 70, 80 people working in our company in Russia before we started the tea business. So my passports are full of Russian stamps. I don't need to see it from TV.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I was gonna your view of, and there's of course limited reporting now because a lot of the Western broadcasters have now had to stop given the new kind of fines in Russia on reporting. But I just wonder how believed the news are still, whether people are getting additional information from somewhere else and therefore starting to doubt the propaganda.
Well, I think there is definitely a part who sees what's really going on, but what we have seen over the last days, it's let's say the brainwashing is so like strong that even I'd say, well, there have been cases where people who are in Ukraine at the moment hiding from bombs are calling their relatives, and their relatives don't believe them. They say that no, there's no war. So I think that shows the extent of this brainwashing.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are just in the world. Unfortunately, we are rolling from one crisis to another, and
right.
and if you look at this crisis has not ended, but it's just overshadowed by this war. If you look at the situation with this COVID crisis and with all those views and things, it's also like there are up from a certain point, or people are you cannot convince them. If they believe something, they believe,
right.
and it has not appeared overnight. It has been systematic work over the many years, and if you build it up, and if everyone, how to say, like. I'm not saying that all the people in Russia see it from one perspective. There are probably, I would say, 20 or 30% of the population that is relatively immune to this propaganda, and they understand it for what it is. But it's 20 or 30%, and it's mostly concentrated on some bigger, more educated, more developed cities. Now, if you go to the smaller cities or villages, and if everyone around you believes the same thing, then even if you have the questions appearing, well,
I think one of the things is also that even if you do understand and you think differently, then this is not something that is welcomed. It's like you can easily go to jail or do some concentration camp because you say something differently. So I think that's also the sad part, that even if people do understand, there's like only so much they can do.
Yeah, and they cannot live that reality because they might have to pretend that the reality out there is true. Yeah, I think in terms of like that shifting, very often only comes through experience, right? So if people experience something that's contrary to what they've been fed, then something happens inside. But so what do you think, what do you think we like from your perspective? I know you're doing your the great donations, which is amazing, and I think I'm gonna think about that for inspiration for Tea Rebellion also. What do you think people can do? What like if you just talked about the West, which is is more governments, I guess, but people, individual people, what do you think they should be doing?
I think from my side, like, well, there is different ways to donate or there are probably in all European countries there are some organizations or
Yeah.
someone gathering or saying what is needed, and we can all support that, and then it's I think it's, I would say, emotionally important, maybe even more than the actual like this physical help that comes from those things. But I think one thing, people have relatively short memory, as we all know, and societies have even shorter memory. And I think what I would like to say, or what I would like to see, is that that no matter how this conflict ends, in maybe it ends somehow in a week or month, or who knows, but that we wouldn't again forget, and it would because again, like, we roll to a next crisis. There is a next thing after a while populating our news, and then whenever you turn on the TV, you see some next crisis coming and happening. Unfortunately, this is the reality of the life today. But that we wouldn't forget Ukraine after it's over, and because then it really matters, because all those, and I don't think that Russia can really win this war, but all this infrastructure, all those cities, all those people, they have traumas for their life, and then the country is in big part of it is in ruins.
Yeah,
I think this and this support needs to be there for years to come, to help to build it up, and I really hope that we are not all forgetting as soon as the next crisis hits us, because that would be sad.
Yeah.
I think from my side also, I think it's I'd say from being not like a neighboring country or being close, it's maybe hard to understand, but to really realize that it's not like a conflict, it's a real on war there, and it's that you don't become immune to it, because it's the 11th day already or something. So it's of course I don't say that people should just consume the news all the time and just be depressed. You have to take care of yourself as well, but not to get immune that there is a war, and what can we do about it. But I think it's also there are members of the tea community also living in Ukraine. We don't know many of them, but for example, we know this Viter Keramics, Ivan and Alina, who are basically somewhere hiding also. So they have been doing a lot of updates. They didn't do updates for several days. So it's also, you already start to think like, okay, are they okay or not? And it's real people. It's like you and me. It's
Yeah. I think they're both. Yeah, I mean, it's the 11th day, and the attention. You're totally right. We don't want this another thing happening in 2-3 weeks that takes the attention span away, and staying with it and the rebuilding of it, no matter what the outcome, will be time consuming and require funds and effort and attention and all that, and then the personal part of people's lives. A lot have come over here now. They will at some point maybe reconnect. Well, we don't know, but yeah. The on terms of donations, so through you, for people who are buying tea, and then there's a way to donate, which I think is quite good here if people are anywhere else in Europe. It's called the Disaster Emergency Committee, DEC, and the UK government is matching whatever private people are raising. So for anyone who wants their funds matched by the government, donate to them. DEC it's called, and I think it was just set up a few days ago. So before it was Red Cross or this and that, other charities. And then there are kind of, I guess, trucks who are collecting certain clothes and things like that. There's one happening in our community. They look a lot like they're warm things and charging batteries and sleeping bags for people who are staying behind and fighting. It's not the usual kind of clothes for kids truck. It's more stuff that you would need if you're, if you want to stay connected.
I think there are actually quite many ways you can help at the moment. Like you said, just donating money to the relevant organizations. It's also, at least I don't know, it's different in every country, but we also get a lot of people, women and children who are fleeing the country. So you can donate things for them to get a bit more comfortable in your country. Also, like you said, donating things for the people staying in Ukraine. So I think there are many ways, and I think one of the positive things is that that we see that so many people are actually helping, and people are met with warmth and positivity, that people want to help them. So I think that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. It's true. It's and it's Ukraine has been showing up so well in this crisis as a country, like the leadership, the way they're communicating, the people, so warm and authentic. And so you just feel connected and want to help. Like, I think that's part of what's happening. Speaking from that. Okay, I think, do you have any other kind of things that you want to share or say that we should include here? Any other thoughts? I also don't want to make this too long.
I don't know. It's I believe we all probably see the news. It's devastating what is happening. It's somehow like, even sometimes it's hard to make any sense out of it, or to believe that it's actually happening, but it is happening.
Yeah, it's happening. I think it's important to remember that for this to end well, there needs to be something that both sides can live with, right? And something that Putin, because it's the way the country is being run, and there's the propaganda, and at this stage looks like a dictatorship, I think, to the world. He has to have a story to feed back to his people. And I think that's important to remember. If he cannot sell the outcome, it won't stop, I think.
Well, I think Ukrainians are saying it themselves, and I fully believe it, that it's not only their war, it's actually the war for all of us, and unfortunately, I think you can pull many parallels. World has seen it once, 80, 90 years ago, and the situation was, I think, in a way, very similar, in a sense that also, like, inside, like, well, it wasn't the Second World War wasn't it wasn't all the, how to say, all the Germans behind it, but the system kind of consumed the whole country in the end, and it could not be fixed before this leadership was gone. And unfortunately, I think it's the same situation with Russia. It does not fix until this current leadership is gone in one way or the other. Unfortunately, well, it could take decades, and so we have to be prepared for long conflict, in a sense, and also to be prepared to make sacrifices ourselves, because, well, Ukrainians are making sacrifices with their lives and homes. Well, maybe we have to make sacrifices with paying more for the fuel, or paying, I don't know, higher taxes, whatever, but if we don't do that, it will come to all of us, I am afraid. But, well, let's hope that I'm just in a grim mood, because, well, I have been the last 10 days, but I think we should at least think about those things, and be ready to make our sacrifices when the time comes.
Yeah, I think these are really, really good words to kind of reiterate. We have to be prepared to make sacrifices for this to end well, and that includes, the whole energy issue here in the West, which the willingness, I guess, is rising to take drastic decisions, but it's not fully there yet. So let's put it that way. Okay, well, it was really, really nice to talk to you. I appreciate the time. And maybe we should, it's probably already on your profile, but I'll put a story there that, people can see the conversation, and that you are doing this donation, and maybe some other call to actions, other links for those who've joined, although I'm sure it's everywhere already and people know where they're contributing. And yeah, I'd love to stay connected, and maybe we can talk again in a few weeks when it all looks hopefully brighter.
Yeah, hopefully we can do this in a more positive note.
Yes, and hopefully I get to try your teas at some point. Do you work with anyone in the UK or in Germany? Maybe I can try and get hold of something easily.
Well, actually, it's quite easily available from our own e-shop, because we send worldwide. But in UK we don't. But in Germany we will be very soon.
Cool.
We want to put it out yet, but
well, we are mostly been doing the direct to customer sales, but yeah, like Germany is our biggest market actually nowadays. So, and we will have some partnership there also, like next season. So
very cool. Yeah, actually, the Germans love tea, and they drink good tea mostly, and they love to drink it loose rather than in bags, which is also great for tea companies. So yes, make tea not war joint. That's funny. We just had a little conversation about that meme, make tea not war. So yeah, it's funny. Anyway, so we hope, yeah, it was great to talk about this, and we'll hope to connect next time under a more pleasant kind of topic. And meanwhile, everyone stays safe and contributes the way that they can to make this better, make this go better quickly. Thank you, Kristina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Slava Ukraini.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.